Get ready, Staten Island.
The Ferry Hawks are back at SIUH Community Park July 7th to the 12th for a 6-game series against the High Point Rockers. Tonight, first pitch is at 6:30. It's Thirsty Thursday with $5 Bud and Bud Light Drafts. Friday, July 10th, first pitch is at 7 p.m. May the Force be with you on Star Wars Night with post-game kids glow around the bases with special lightsaber training packs.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me. Taxi.
Okay, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
You and I are going to talk to Wyatt now. Hello, Wyatt. Welcome to the other side of midnight.
How are you?
Do you know about Carolina dance music?
Yeah, I have to be honest with you, I do not, but I'm very intrigued.
Now, are you, from the Carolinas?
No.
All right. Tell everybody the name of your website and your blog.
Yeah, it's my show's called The Sharpe Exchange, Sharpe with an E on the end, and it's on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Wyatt is in high school, and he put together a podcast that's more professional than anything we have on the 77 WABC website or any other radio website that I can mention. And it's not not derogatory toward the WABC website, God forbid. No, it's that he's just really done an amazing job. Rattle off some of the people you have interviewed on your blog.
Justin Trudeau, Robert F. Kennedy, Hillary Clinton, Vivek Ramaswamy, a number of people on both sides of the aisle. I like to keep it nonpartisan whenever I can.
Now, did Hillary threaten to kill you?
No.
Because it comes up often with her. People disappear.
No.
It's as though they are UFO scientists. They reveal their findings, and then they disappear. Up to 14 UFO-related scientists who have disappeared. Did you know that?
No, I did not. No comment.
And then
I have some interesting Gen Z stories for you if you're interested.
All right, forcing the agenda along, why don't you go ahead, Wyatt, and share with us some interesting Gen Z stories. So I've asked him to come on every Monday morning on the other side of midnight to get us up to date on trends in high schools and trends in colleges and things that you and your friends find intriguing and concerning. Sir, it is all yours.
This week I was a little bit more leaning towards doing kind of lifestyle stories in terms of what Gen Z is finding is kind of shaping their day-to-day lives. And I found 3 interesting stories, all of which kind of relate to one another. The first one is that Gen Z is not prioritizing marriage as they once were. And so there's a new survey that found that only 37% of members of my generation, Gen Z, believe that marriage is essential to achieving the American dream. And for a lot of young people, young adults specifically, things like financial stability, owning a home, building a career, all of those things now outrank getting married. They rank ahead of the prospect of getting married for a young person. And so usually, traditionally speaking, the mentality has been marry first and then kind of build together as a family, whereas Gen Z is now looking at this a lot more as let's build up our individual lives and then look towards marriage later on. The second one has to do with salary transparency. I was always taught when I was growing up from my mom and from my dad that it's rude to ask someone how much money they would make. Frankly, I don't have any reason to ask somebody how much money they would make, but Gen Z is really breaking kind of that workplace taboo, if you will. A lot of members of Gen Z are now posting their salaries online on places like TikTok and LinkedIn, and they're doing it to try and help other people negotiate, other members of my generation, helping one another negotiate with their employers for better pay and to expose perhaps some of the wage gaps that exist to make conversations around salary a little bit less awkward. And then just lastly, the last one is perhaps not as surprising. Obviously, members of my generation are growing up online with unprecedented access to social media and digital forms. but Gen Z is spending a lot more time alone than previous generations, which, again, that's not necessarily surprising. The other part of this is that they're spending more time sleeping, the research in particular showed that young adults are increasingly spending both work and leisure time by themselves, which, of course, is prompting discussions around mental health and around loneliness and cognitive development and all these sorts of things. So all these three stories put together kind of shows how Gen Z is really looking to flip the script kind of on what traditional life looked like versus how they see their lives looking in the year 2026.
I wonder, in the marriage research and the marriage survey, there's a breakout of men versus women.
I don't think so, but it is interesting because I think in particular not in this survey, but in other surveys and other research that I've looked at in particular, of course, men have traditionally been, going back in history, the ones who were kind of the workers of the family, so to speak. But now, in 2026, we're really starting to see women also having the opportunity to engage in the workforce and get a career. And so I think it's probably more of a mutual thing. Beforehand, the kind of family side of life was led by women versus now if you have both people in the workforce, it's kind of, an undisputable fact that there might be less time for family activities. But all that to say, I do think that it's an interesting conversation because if you have two members of your family, both of which are working full time, that would likely bode well in terms of being able to support your family, in terms of finances, in terms of your income and stuff. So I was actually surprised because I thought if you have two members, a husband and a wife, who both have high salaries, I would think putting those together would lead to more family development and such, but it seems as if the trend is actually the opposite.
When I started out in the workforce, I did not see a compulsion to get married. I saw a compulsion to get a career, to establish a career, get a cool apartment, start a home. I didn't see what you're suggesting, which is that it used to be different. I think it was, for the past 50 years, the same. I think first you get your career together, and then later at 28, 29, 30, then you start to think about getting married. I don't think that's different. That's interesting, though, that they're presenting that as something new. That's not anything new. But the salary survey is far more interesting to me. You're right. I was raised that the dumbest thing I could do was reveal my salary. It was nobody's business. It was nobody's business. We don't talk about money. And I'd never ask anybody what they were paying. And there are funny places in the country, different places in the country that have different dynamics around money. In New York City, for example, knowing what each other's rent is a sport. Gathering information about rent is a sport. In other parts of the country, it's as sacred as asking somebody what their salary is. You just wouldn't ask them what their rent is. But in New York City, it's very much a sport. What are you paying for rent? How'd you get that rent? You get rent controlled? Is it rent stabilized? But as and also that website Glass Ceiling, the Glass Ceiling website, you're an idiot if you tell anybody what you're making. It is nobody's business, and it takes away your leverage. One of the dumbest things is, and wrong, is when you're sitting there for a job interview and the interviewer says to you, what are you making now? The correct, you have two answers to that, Wyatt. There are two answers to that. Either you say, I signed a confidentiality agreement, I'm not allowed to tell you, and I would sign one for you too. The other thing to say is, well, I'm not up for the job I have now. I'm up for this job. So let's talk about the salary for this job. Right. That's what you say. You tell them what you're making, and then, gee, you're surprised they only offered you $1,000 a year more. Oh my God, why aren't they offering? Dumbest thing you could possibly do. I would urge you and your friends to never tell anybody what you're making. It's nobody's business.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was generally speaking how I've been raised and what I've been taught as well. I think the reason, though, just to kind of underscore why I think people are doing this is because, to your point, and that is that conversations around salaries and how much money people make have traditionally been very kind of standardized. You know, this is the salary expectation for this type of a position, and this is the salary for a different type of position. It's all kind of been one specific salary for a particular job type. But now what I think people in Gen Z are starting to realize to an extent is that certain people in certain careers are making X amount of dollars, while someone else who has the exact same career might be making less than that. So I'm not saying it's necessarily right, but I do think the reason that they're doing this is because they want to help one another negotiate better pay on
stupid
a
idea.
Kind of
incredibly stupid idea. Are those other people going to do your job for you if you all share this information? They're going to be there with you at 7 o'clock at night when the work needs to get done, or they're going to go out with their buddies and you're all making the same money. Good going. No, it's a terrible idea. And there's no reason in the world that everybody should be making the same amount of money unless it is under a collective bargaining agreement, unless it's a union agreement, and then the salaries are public, and then they have formally been agreed to in public. And those sometimes are great in that it prevents those lows that you mentioned, but it also prevents the highs. It also prevents a way to celebrate and reward an extraordinary performer. All right, Wyatt, what's the name of your YouTube channel?
The Sharpe Exchange.
The Sharpe Exchange. Wyatt, thank you so much
sir.
for being on the other side of midnight with Walter Sterling.